allowing her to scroll through the pictures until the funeral wrapped up. Mabel glanced over as her granddaughter's tiny index finger expertly slid over the pictures and tapped the play button to watch the short video clips interspersed throughout. Ruth wasn't sure if her mother-in-law approved, but Ruth didn't really care if she did. Ruth did not want to bury her husband in Wisconsin. Therefore, she already resented the land and the extended family, who were so plentiful she didn't feel her single voice carried any weight. She wanted Chandler buried in Ireland, where she and her girls could visit him each day. And yet, was her parents' old stone house truly her home? The surprisingly young bishop read from the Psalms. Der Herr ist meine Stärke und mein Schild. Auf ihn haucht mein Herz und mir ist geholfen. The funeral service was being conducted in both German and English. Ruth suspected that the latter translation was mainly for her benefit, since she was among the few non-Mennonites in attendance. But there was no need. The only way Ruth was going to survive the next few hours, and days for that matter, was by blocking it all out. Otherwise, her shield of self-preservation would crack, and she doubted she could get herself back together if it did. Ruth glanced down at her Fitbit and saw 2 hours had passed since she'd come into the church with her children. Her tights itched, and her eyelids felt heavy, which filled her with guilt. How could she be fighting sleep at her husband's funeral? But she knew this fight stemmed from acute exhaustion, and from the fact there had been few times over the past 6 months she'd allowed herself to sit still, because stillness meant something wasn't getting done, and focusing on getting something done kept her from having too much time to think. And then, piercing the droning quiet, Ruth heard her dead husband's voice, an audible apparition. "Hey there, girly girls," he said. "I hope you're being good for your mama. It's a hot day." Ruth was so stunned, she was unable to correlate that Chandler's voice was not in her head, but coming from her phone. Mouth dry, she glanced at her daughter's lap. The screen framed Chandler's familiar face. Ruth reached for it, and Sophie looked up, eyes flashing, and wrenched the phone back. All the while, the simple, now otherworldly message continued to play. "I'm looking forward to seeing you again. It won't be long now." Ruth finally got the phone away, and Sophie screamed, "No!" The sound reverberated off the church's whitewashed walls, echoing just as the a cappella hymn The City of Light had earlier, as she and her daughters filed past the caskets. Ruth's cheeks burned with humiliation and grief. In the center of her lap, just as it had been in her daughter's, was Chandler's face. His dark beard, his dark skin, his dark eyes, so that he blended in with both the Colombian and Afghani cultures. His coloring was clearly passed down through Mabel, who looked more Native American than Mennonite, most of whom, Ruth knew, were German or Swiss. "I miss you," Ruth thought, and the realization surprised her as much as hearing her dead husband's voice coming from her phone. How could she miss a man who'd been parted from her for so long? For yes, absence did make the heart grow fonder, but then, after a while, that shield of self-preservation grew thicker, and the heart forsook fondness for survival, and all-consuming love for getting by. Ruth felt that she hadn't truly missed her dead husband in 4 of their 5 years of marriage. And sometimes, when she'd missed Chandler the most, he'd been sitting in the same room. 6 years earlier, June 7th, 2012. Dear Chandler, I received your letter today and immediately wanted to hop on a plane and adopt Sophie myself, but my parents are adamant that I am neither mature enough nor financially stable enough to consider it. Have you ever moved back in with your parents after living on your own, or at least in a dorm, for many years? It is not easy, and since I am their only child, granted, like Abraham and Sarah, when they least expected it, I find...